Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today we're going to be continuing our What We've Been Playing series with my guest, I guess not my special guest anymore, my co-host, Corinn from SuperBlondeNerd. How are you doing, Corinn?
Hey nerds, what's up? Doing pretty good. Hanging in there, working on some house projects. So my contributions today will be minimal compared to Mackenzie's.
Minimal, but we're still very excited. Corinn's going to bring up some games that I haven't played before, as well as some favorites for the side game library that we are excited to share with you. So Corinn, go ahead and start us off. Anything you want to talk about before we jump into our lists?
I haven't seen Doctor Strange yet, and I'm sad about it. Mackenzie was giving me flack.
It's not like I put anything on my whiteboard or anything about Doctor Strange, trying to tie that in, but it's
Just
fine. We'll talk about madness during the other portions of our show today. So that being said, Corinn, let's get started and talk about some games.
Let's do it. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
What's your first game, Corinn?
So I will start with the one that's on our thumbnail, which is Honey Buzz from Elf Creek Games. They are the same creators who have made games such as Atlantis Rising. This game was purchased by my brother-in-law, and he was waiting months to get this game. So he finally got it in. We were able to play it last weekend. This game is super fun. It definitely has a lot of components to it. It's a combination of worker placement and tableau building, but the worker placement is technically, I would say, delayed. So you place your worker bees in certain areas, and then you grab a honeycomb piece, and you are working to create different completed rounded hexagons, I would say, out of your honeycombs, and different combinations. You can see the yellow and red rims will make different combinations so that you can create different types of nectar. So nectar is really good to create because you can sell it at the shop. You can also create pollen or get points from different things that you are doing with your worker bees. You can place your worker bees to get new baby bees, or what did they call them? Newbies.
Larva?
They call them newbies.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. But everything that you want to do is only allowed to happen. Your actions, your different things that you can do only happens when you complete a honeycomb circle. And whatever icons are within that circle is the actions that you can do. So you're kind of like stockpiling the actions you want to take as you place your worker bees on the different areas to collect those honeycomb pieces. It's a really interesting aspect that I definitely did not get immediately. I was thinking, oh, I can do this action now. And they're like, no, you can't do that until you complete your honeycomb. So it's a really neat, lots of components. You can also complete jobs for different critters that are coming to get your honey and nectar. So depending on how big the jobs are, you'll get lots of points for them. Let's see, I'm looking at what else they got. They have one card or one type of icon that's basically a wild card. And to get that piece for a honeycomb, you have to pay 5 money for that. So there's a lot of, as you can see, the artwork and the style and vibes are very charming. It's very cute. And again, it's not just, yes, Honey Buzz. It's not just as simple as worker placement tableau building. There's a little bit more to it. And again, lots of components. We only played it once, but I mean, just within that, learned so much already. And then you'll see that those cards on the right-hand corner, it says 10 workers. So those are additional goals that you can set for yourself for, the most workers or the most jobs or the most certain type of nectar. And so it's just, and you can have up to, I think, 10 worker bees, including there's a different type of bee that stays in the pollen area where you collect your nectar. So it's a really fun game. I greatly enjoyed it.
I'm loving the theming on this and just in
Yeah.
general the presentation. I think that's what
Mhm.
Elfquart Games does exceptionally well at. Merchants of the
Yes.
Dark Road, Atlantis Rising
Yes.
definitely feature this. What's your favorite part of this game? When you play it and you finish, you're like, oh, this is the thing I really like.
I I think I really enjoy the pieces that
Okay.
come with it. Again, aesthetics is not anything new for me. Um, the different nectars are all different shapes, and they're all very squishy, which is very tactile, very nice. Um,
Oh my gosh, look at these.
yeah, they're so great. I think my favorite part of the oh yeah, the shopping market system I think is really
Hmm.
cool. So it's the first person to sell any type of certain nectar is at its highest worth. And once you sell, it lowers down in worth. So if you sold your wildflower first, you would sell it for 6 money, and then it would move down. And the next person to sell wildflower would sell it for 5 money, and so on and so forth. So you are inclined to go and use that shop, as well as just that realistic system of things are losing its value the more it's produced.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Is this similar to something like Clans of Caledonia, where you sell as much as possible for that price, and then it moves down that many, and then vice versa? When you buy, it'll go up because now it's more scarce.
It's basically whatever is available. It does not go back up in
Oh, okay.
worth. Yeah.
Ever? Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'll find that at least in the one game that we played, I was selling like throughout, but by the end of the game, almost everyone was selling because that was kind of like the final actions that you could do. As well as you have more pollen and you have an action that is a fan, and that helps to create more nectar um, for to sell for the I called it pollen nectar to sell. You can also get pollen depending on if your bee lands on an actual nectar space or an empty space. If you land in an empty space, you get pollen. So there's a lot, again, a lot of components. There are lots of ways to get points. Excuse me. Yeah, so that little pink fan, I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of upside down. Looks like a half of a flower.
Right here.
Mhm.
Oh, right here. I see it. I see it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So that if you place those in between, let's say, I don't have a really good example. So where, but you could place it basically in between three different nectar points to
Okay.
restore all of those nectar pieces because it restores anything adjacent to it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Now, I am personally not familiar with the process of bees making honey. Is this something that you are familiar with? Did you notice the theme spill into the game mechanism wise?
I mean, it definitely. I mean, just the idea of worker bees and that kind of sense, because there are. I mean, bees do a lot of work. I don't know the full pollination or nectar process, but I mean, I do know that there are a lot of bees that go out and collect and create stuff for the queen bee, who is, I think, seen on the board, and that's where like the babies are.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. Do you feel, this is my final question for you. Did you
sure.
feel like you learned anything playing this game about bees
Mm.
or apiaries in general?
Did I learn anything? I did not know that cherry blossoms produce nectar. At least that's what it's claiming in the game.
I imagine all flowers produce nectar, yeah?
See,
I guess
I don't
pollen.
even think about that.
Wait,
Yeah.
do cherry blossoms produce nectar or do cherry blossoms produce pollen? I guess they produce nectar. They produce both, right? Because the bees
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
collect the nectar and then have the
Yeah.
pollen around them. Yes, it's a flower, right?
Right. You would think. But
Nick.
I am not a scientist. I'm not a biologist, scientist, plant.
Totally got it.
100%.
Whenever I play a game that has to do with nature, or like whether it be birds or trees, I'm always thinking to myself, I'm like, why don't I know the names of flowers or trees or plants?
You
I can name like 800 Pokemon, but I can't remember the
it
name
is
of like 10 different trees. It's something that I think about more than I should. It's pretty hilarious.
it's what you choose to store in your brain. I get it.
I guess I make poor choices. Awesome. Anything else to cover on Honeybuzz before we move on?
Mm. Not off the top of my head. It was No, I was gonna try to make a joke. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I highly recommend it. It's very good.
Okay. If you had to give it a rating, what would you give it a rating? Your initial from your first plays?
An 8.
An 8?
Right
Wow,
around
okay.
there with the board game geeks. Because it's a little bit more complicated than just your tableau building, worker placement. Like I said, like kind of the delayed actions and everything was really neat, and just having all of the different components and the aesthetic. It's
Oh
very
yeah, that
cute.
aesthetic is wonderful, and that's a
Yeah.
big part of gaming. And it looks like
Yes.
Emily, of course, is in love with the game as well. And if you are here watching with us live or after the fact, let us know what you think of these games, and if you have any questions for Corinn or myself about these properties. Now, keep in mind, I haven't played Honeybuzz, so all these questions are straight to you, Corinn.
Hooray!
Awesome. So that goes ahead and brings to my first game that I want to talk about. And this is what my little board behind me is alluding to. And this is Wonderland's War. So Wonderland's War is a area control, card drafting, bag building game that does
Mm.
each thing very differently from anything that you are familiar with in those genres. The drafting is different, the battle is different, as well as the bag building itself is different. And I love this because it takes mechanisms from other games that I love, but does them in such unique ways, combines them in interesting ways, and does it in a compelling way that even after the game is over, I'm still thinking about it. So I really like Wonderland's War. It actually receives an 8 from me as well, and I can't wait to talk about it. Have you heard about this game at all, Corinne?
I have not. I had asked you beforehand. I thought it was referring to Tiny Tina's Wonderland, but that's a little different. So
Gotcha.
no, but it looks. I love Alice in Wonderland, so this is a great topic
So
in the genre.
the theming is extremely strong here. Each of the rounds is split into
Ah.
2 distinct phases, and it actually gives me a little bit feeling of something similar to like Blood Rage, where you have the drafting phase where you're
Mm.
collecting your cards and your abilities and powers, and then you're seeing how they play out in the battle portion in the second half of the game. So it's a bit of area control, a lot of push your luck, and a lot of evaluating different cards and abilities. Now, when it comes to the first half of the game, this is actually my favorite part of the entire experience. This is a card drafting that's done in a one-way street method. You pick a card that is next to your character and you can go as far as you want. However, here's the trick here. Once these cards dwindle in choices, you can always go past it and decide to refresh the entire pool. But every time you do so, you'll roll this madness die, which will give you negative points. In addition, if you have more madness than anybody else at the end of each Tea Party phase, you have to add extra negative tokens into your bags. If you've played something like Quacks of Quedlinburg, these are the form of the cherry bombs in that game. In this game, they are actual madness pieces, and those madness pieces will make you lose your soldiers in combat. It's terrible. You do not want these, and you're going to do whatever you can to not take them. And wow, it's wild. So I love how the options are going to dwindle. You'll move on the one-way street, take the card, and each card has different icons and different symbols that they'll do. You'll have some cards that give you extra powerful units that you can summon on the board, a la Blood Rage, where you get the different monsters and different characters. You have these icons in the corner that determine how many different soldiers you get to summon onto the board, as well as different chips to add to your bag. So you have every single choice of every aspect of the game put on these cards, and of course, like every good game should, it escalates in power level as the game progresses. Oh my goodness, I love this mechanism. So Emily has a quick question here. Got the Kickstarter version. It's frustratingly fun. Played every character except for the Queen. And any thoughts on the Jabberwocky being overpowered? So we've only played one game. I was so impressed with it that I actually got a copy for the library. Have not played with the Jabberwocky myself, but my wife Ariana did. And I think she actually got last place in the gameplay. Haven't played it enough to give you any ideas on if it's overpowered, but I played Alice and she was nuts. I had 100 points to, I think, 60 was second place. So it was wild. There was this ability where I could beef up my main character, and then one of her upgrades allowed her to teleport to each battle that I was in if I drew a specific chip. And of course, I catered my strategy towards that. Whoo, some cool stuff. And that's another awesome thing of the game is how much choice and freedom you have here. So Barker here has a great point that the Wonderlandians are so cool. And I agree with you, Barker. Those are the monsters essentially you can recruit, but they take place as the characters from Wonderland. It could be the rabbit. It could be the,
Mad
I'm
Hatter.
blanking on, go for it.
Mad Hatter.
The Mad Hatter is actually one of the playable characters, but you can be the caterpillar,
Oh, okay.
one of the caterpillars or a unicorn. So all of these it's so cool because you have all of these different options at your fingertips on how you want to upgrade yourself, either increasing the ability of your character, getting different people to follow you, or putting out different pieces into your bag to be able to summon them. And so here are some of the Wonderlandians here. And another cool thing about the Wonderlandians is there are also chips that you can put in your bag sometimes. So they come in either miniatures that go on the board or chips that can go into your bag. And it takes the thing from Quacks of Quedlinburg where all of the different stuff is modular. So at the start of each game, you can mix and match the sets. And so every game is going to be different. I'm kind of in love with this game. It is super exciting to play, and the characters are just so interesting. They all have different upgrade paths that you can take, different abilities that you have access to, and then every time you fight, you have the ability to forge using these forge tokens, and you'll be taking and removing chips from your bag and placing them onto your board to unlock special abilities. But every time that you do that, your bag is getting smaller, which means that you're not able to dilute your bag with good chips, so you're going to be drawing those madness tokens more. It is crazy, the cycling and the sequence of this game, which puts an even crazier stress onto that drafting mechanism and what cards that you're adding to your bag. I know I'm talking a lot, but holy cow, there's some good stuff here. And I could just spew about this for days. Do you have any questions about this?
Yeah, I'm super curious. So because when you were saying like madness is technically a like negative points, does the Mad Hatter have anything against that, or does the madness help the Mad Hatter in any way? Like, is it a bonus for him or helpful in him, or is it even worse for Mad Hatter, I guess?
That's a good question, because Mad Hatter, we played a 4-player game of it, and Mad Hatter is the only character that didn't get used. So I cannot speak to that. If someone's in the comment section, Barker, Emily, if you can let us know what you think of the Mad Hatter's power level. I played as Alice, Ariana played as Jabberwock, and my friend Ashley, she taught us the game. She was playing as... who's the 5th character? Oh, the Cheshire Cat, of course. And then her wife Brooke was playing as the Queen of Hearts. So we had a full set of 4, and it was such a great learning experience. Thank you again, Ashley, for the teach. Amazing. Oh, it's so wonderful. Really enjoy this. Love the exploration of the characters. And as mentioned before, this is a game that I'm going to be thinking about. I'm still thinking about, and I am excited to just play more of. Seeing the different ways that the chips interact with one another. Whew. Oh, and Emily's got our comment here. Mad Hatter doesn't get shards easily, which means they're not going to get as mad. So maybe they're used to it. Right. And they don't have to move across the head of the table to grab an action card. That's pretty powerful. So normally when you pass the head of the table, that's when you roll that madness dice and you refill the market. They have an ability where I think they could just refresh it, something like that.
Yeah. See, the Mad Hatter would be the character that I would go for first. So
it's got the best color. Curious. It's purple. They've got their own. I love the different troops that you have that summon onto the board.
Cute. I love it.
Oh my gosh, it's lovely. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and if you are learning this game or teaching this game, I think you need to stress this, is when you are playing and when you are actually drafting cards at the beginning of the game, it's important that you put troops onto the map, because we didn't realize how pivotal the troops were to the madness token interaction. Every time you draw a madness card, you remove a troop from one of the battles you're in. And if you ever run out of troops, you bust. And so you can control the amount at which you bust by the number of troops that you have in a battle, which is pretty interesting, because maybe you have a battle very early and you put a bunch of troops in there, so you can just keep on drawing and drawing and drawing and not really have to worry about it, and then hopefully dilute your bag throughout the different fights. And I think it's very important to let people know that connection between the amount of troops. They don't ever add strength. They just prevent you from busting, essentially. It's a very weird concept to wrap your head around, but after 1 or 2 battles, you'll be like, oh, okay, I got this. And then just something that I think you should know if you are learning or teaching this game is the importance of the relationship between the troops, the madness, and strength, and all those values and how they tie together.
Nice.
Whew. So big amount of information here. Any other questions for me, Corinn, before we move on to your next game?
It's like I have to think of them at the beginning of this, because I never think of questions. Other than the Mad Hatter one, because that was important, because that's what I would do. So,
no worries.
No, I mean, it looks super fun. How long was the gameplay?
The gameplay, this was our first game. I think it took us about 2.5 hours to finish the game. So 2.5 hours total, but the gameplay was consistently engaging. There is a cool mechanism as well where when fights are happening, you can actually wager on the fights for the other players. And if you are successful in who you predict is going to win, you get an extra chip to add to your bag, which is kind of cool because you can purposefully not be involved in the first couple of fights to add a couple of chips to your bag and then go in a bit more prepared in future fights. It's really cool system, and it's just exciting. You're always excited to see what happens and to see how the different players react and if they bust or not. So lots to love in Wonderland's War. I can't wait to play more, honestly, and I'm eagerly awaiting my copy to arrive. If you take a look at the Druid City Games, I think it's on the Skybound side, actually, they have deluxe editions of the game, so you can find that here. So if you are looking for a copy, they have them there with the upgraded components from the Kickstarter and everything, so you can get all of that now. If you have any interest in this, this is a strong recommend from me. I think it definitely has a spot in our library, and I can't wait to show it to more people.
That's awesome.
So super cool. That is Wonderland's War. Corinn, what is the next game you got for me?
So my game has been one that I've been wanting to play since people have recommended it on my aesthetically pleasing game video, which is Cascadia. Yeah, it's Cascadia. The one I was like, is that the right game? It is a, what would you call it? You're piecing together your board.
Yeah, it's like tile placement, pattern creation.
Yeah, so it's very much like Carcassonne, where the placement of your locations is pretty important, as well as what is on each location, which is a type of animal. And there are 5 different types of animals: the bear, the elk, the fox, the hawk, and I was gonna forget the
salmon.
Salmon, that's right, the fish.
You can't forget the fish.
The salmon, yeah. There are different ways that you can earn points. One of them being, again, like I said, the placement of your tiles. There are different terrains, and if you have the largest same terrain, like the connected, I can speak. You get what I'm saying. The largest plot of the same type of terrain, you get points for that. We got there.
You got
and then
there.
there are different a bunch of different cards of the same animal that give you different points depending on what it is asking for. So the game that we played, you have pairs of bears, so like mating pairs. So you can have 2 bears next to each other, but then you can't have any pairs of bears next to your bears, basically. Like
no
right
pairs of bears. Got it. Yeah. There it is.
And we had, the hawk, where you can't have any hawk next to another hawk. And then you get points for that. You have the line of salmon. See, as long of a line of salmon as possible gets you extra points. Same with the elk, same with the fox. There's a lot of different components and strategies and ways that the game can go. But it's simplistic enough where we played it in under an hour for sure for the first time. So it's really fun. And then that one tile that you see that has a pine cone, you get, if you place that specific animal there, the pine cone helps you to choose any 2 types of terrain and animal, because how you pick your terrain and animal is whatever pairs are laid out in front of you, and there are 4 different pairs. But with the pine cone, you can choose which one you want. Pick and choose.
I really like that system of the way you can get some flexibility. You can either mix match, or you can clear the entire row of animals if you don't want any of them, and push your luck a little bit with the different characters that could come out. So I think there's some great choices here. Out of all of the different portions and different animals, what's the strategy that you gravitated towards?
What did I gravitate? The salmon, for sure, because that one isn't. I don't know. You can be. It's a pretty simple strategy for that one, just as long as it's in a line and you're not creating the cluster of them. I gravitated towards the salmon, and as well as trying the different clusters that don't have any of the same animal next to it. I thought that was a pretty simple way to go as well. And then I tried to have the largest cluster of the grass terrain, or maybe it was swamp terrain. I saw Emily's comment, by the way, that she said that they had just started playing this with some newbies and they loved it immediately. So that's awesome. Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. It was really pretty. You Yeah, lots of variability. Absolutely. I think this is a very good, solid game to have in your library. Mackenzie, do you have this in your library?
I do. I love Cascadia. I think it's extremely good. This is one of my favorite go-to family games, and I
Mm,
think that Barker does it really well. Here, he states that it's got different objective cards, lots of variability, and just like Emily said, it is extremely easy for people to take to,
yeah.
enjoy, and place. It's satisfying to place tiles, to match symbols, and it's something that you can look at and easily evaluate your choices. I
Hmm.
have the ability to take these things. This has the different terrains that I want, but then that choice is still present. You have to think to yourself, what is better? Am I willing to spend my one pinecone token to grab the two different tiles, but knowing that I'm going to have to be at the mercy of the tiles later? I
Hmm.
love it. I love the choices in this game. I think it's a great pick, Corinne.
Yes. Well, I'm very excited that my sister bought it. So thanks, Lydia.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add to this? What's your favorite part of the game, would you say?
Mm, okay, I'm gonna try to say not aesthetic. No, I do like the variability of the different types of ways that you can gain points. So I like that there's different objectives for each type of animal, and as they were saying, lots of variability of the types of games that you're going to get. So I think it's a very, I don't math wise, I don't know how many different types of games you can have, but it's really nice that you have so many different options.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, that is Cascadia. And once again, if you have any questions or comments about any games we talk about, please let us know down below. We'll make sure to feature them here. So that is Cascadia, another great pick by Corinne. And now we move on to something extremely different from, I think, anything we're going to talk about on this list. And this past weekend, we did a huge game trade, and my friend Jeff was able to trade me some games for some credit, and I went ahead and dived into the Tokyo series. So this is a series of games from Jordan Draper. He's a designer who has a lot of these small little box games, and for most people, they're very hit or miss. I was talking to Corinne before the stream and basically saying that I was not very impressed by a lot of these games. However, there is one that I think is stupendous. Now, before I get into that, I want to talk about the reasons I don't really like a lot of these games. A lot of them are collections of maybe 10 or so different mini games in one, and they're using one central gimmick. For example, Coin Laundry has you playing with literal coin laundry. So you have these little laundry machines that you're putting things in. Or you have the Tokyo, let me get the name here so I don't butcher it, Jito Hanbaiki. And Jito Hanbaiki has you playing with a Tokyo vending machine, and you're going to be using these little bottles and putting them around. Unfortunately, those games are pretty dang fiddly, and it ruins, honestly, the whole experience. And on top of that, the games are just not as exciting. And it's not really a experience that I want to invest my time in to play something that is tedious and just not really that compelling. But throw that all out of the window, because this game here is the culmination of what all of these other games have tried to do. And it takes that idea of fiddliness and the challenge of actually maneuvering the pieces and puts it into a game that does it exceptionally well. And I'm talking about the game Tokyo Game Show. Tokyo Game Show here is exactly what it sounds like. You, as the player, are going to be hosting a Tokyo Game Show. And for me, this is kind of a perfect role. I get to be a game host in game as well and participate. How awesome is this? So you play with this up to 6 players here, and you play as the narrator, and you are hosting the contestants. They're going to slap on a wristband and start participating in different activities. And these activities come in all shapes and sizes. Every single card you're going to reveal from the top of the deck one at a time. You can really play the game as long as you want, but there are going to be point values assigned to the different players based on how well they do on these different activities. The different activities have a little symbol in the corner, and these are going to tell you what you're going to do. And the greatest thing about this is you can cater the activities you play with based on the people that you are actually with. There are some games where you have to be able to think on your feet. You have to stand. You have to move around. If somebody's not able to do that, not a big deal. Pick a different card. You have some games where you're going to be using dexterity. If somebody's uncomfortable with dexterity, you can move to a different card. But if you're an omni gamer, if you're able to do all these things, this makes for a raucous experience that's going to be one that you're going to be very excited to play again and again. You flip over the top card. You have a quick, small summary, 15-second explanation for each of the rules of these games, and then you play. You have crazy things where you're stacking these little things on the board. You're rolling dice and having crazy events happen. You have word games potentially that you may have to speak and try to be really clever on the spot, and it pushes you, your brain, your hands, your entire physique to the limit. Some of the games are quiet games, which will have you sitting in silent, maybe trying to predict something based on what somebody points to, or being the first to stand up and shout, or there's so much creativity into these small little experiences. Some of them have a bit of familiarity and they might be something that you already are a little bit exposed to, but the fact that it's all packaged here neatly, nicely, and it's going to be an experience that you do enjoy. It's definitely put some of the lifting onto the game show host, because it is up to you to actually facilitate these games, be on top of it, help with the cadence, get it moving. But I think that this experience is one that I am always excited to play. And I don't even think I want to play it that much, but I have played it and I want to be the host. I like being the host in this game. It's fun to be the person that's facilitating so much chaotic fun. I really like Tokyo Game Show here, and it takes all of those aspects that I don't really like in those other John Draper games, but it puts it in a package here that is exceptional. I think they took all the things that I was disappointed with in the others, and they did it so well here. They made it so that it was digestible, easy to learn, and fun to play because it's so varied. So I really like this one. This is Tokyo Game Show, and there is a cross compatibility with the other games where I can take the components from Tokyo Coin Laundry and use them in one of the mini games in Tokyo Game Show. Or I can take the little bottles and the little vending machine from Tokyo Jito Hanbaiki and I can put them into one of the game shows. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it all the time because it uses all of the components pretty much. So I have to lug around that extra box, but it's an option. It's cool. I think it's a hoot. So that's Tokyo Game Show. Corinn, have you seen this game? Have you ever heard of this company?
No, I have not heard of this company. I was just trying to think of what I could like compare it to, and I think the closest I could think of is something like Quelf or almost Cranium, just where it's like do these random tasks and it's a very randomized but very fun type of game. So did you say there was a limit to how many games, like mini games that you do? Do you set up only a certain amount?
So the way the game flow is you reveal a card from the top of the deck, and then you put out point counters equal to the number of players. So if you're playing a 4, you put out a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. Essentially, if you lose, then you take the lowest point counter. If you win, you take the highest. And you basically do this until you get to that final round, and then it's done.
Okay.
Holy cow. It's so well done.
This makes me think of like video games that have mini games like Mario Party or Pokemon Stadium, where you're
just gives me that feeling of WarioWare, if we're being real. Like that is what it makes me feel.
I mean, that totally fits. So
yeah, and you can even see there's like all those classic Tokyo game shows. I don't know if you watched. I watched a lot of Spike TV when I was younger, and they had MXC, Ninja Warrior. All of these game shows were on there, and it harkened back to that emotional feeling. So I really enjoy this entire atmosphere that the game produces.
Yes, and all of those new ones that come out. I don't know if it's in Tokyo first, but the ones where they have like the cutouts and you have to contort your body to like whatever the shape is before it comes and pushes you off the platform.
That's so fun.
Yeah, that's great. This looks very fun and like a really good game to have for a theme night or something to get people, maybe even an icebreaker, honestly, because it's just such a randomized, like, hey, everyone participate, be silly, and as you were saying, it caters also to those who enjoy hosting.
Yes,
you can be the host in the game that you're hosting at your house.
Oh my gosh, wonderful. So Emily says here, haven't played any of the series, but seen it at the friendly local game store. Thinking about trying it. If you like the idea of a frantic, ridiculous party game that has a great structure, but also manageable and consumable rules, I recommend Tokyo Game Show. I think this is going to be one that I do bring out a lot when it comes to large groups, and if we're looking for something goofy and silly and fun, but with a good structure that's not going to make it too chaotic.
Right.
So I really enjoy this game. And I'm excited to try the other games in the series. Up next on my list to try is Tokyo Metro. And then after that, we have the Tokyo Tsuchiki Market with the expansion. So I hear that the Tsuchiki Market is very similar to Container, but it's also going to have that expansion in it, which is supposed to solve some of the issues that were in the original printing. So I'm excited to try these. I love the aesthetic of these games. So I'm glad that Game Show is a hit because this is one that is going to get played.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that is Tokyo Game Show. All right, Corinn, what is your last big game to talk about today?
Well, I'm looking back at my list because I'm like, do I just talk about it again because we keep playing, or maybe I'll put in a different one because I did remember one that we did play that we had not talked about yet. So I think I will do that one, which is
Okay.
Cubitos
Ah,
or
okay.
Cubitos. I don't know how people pronounce it. This one is also a really fun one that my husband and I, with my sister and her husband, play. We've done like basically the Grand Prix, which is like all
Hmm.
of the different races. Yeah, Cubitos is a very fun, you're holding on to the luck of the rolls, but there are so many different types of little dice that you go for and can help you get certain points and money so that you can get better dice that helps you get more points or get you further in the race of Cubitos. I have never played a game quite like this. And I just really enjoy, again, the aesthetic. Like it is Minecraft basically. Everything is a cube. Everything is made of cubes, dogs and cats and everything. Um, yeah, but such a fun, unique type of game where your main objective is just to get around the race and be first place. But to do that, you have different die that help you get feet, and each foot helps you move along in the race, as well as plethora of different types of cards that are different different components that you can use to win. So there are different llamas. There's like 6 different llamas, each with their own special ability
Ah,
that you can have and play, as well as pineapples and just all of the it's very random, but it's very fun. So the more dice you have, honestly, the better. But you can also get rid of some of your starter dice that you go with, which are very filler dice and aren't very helpful. So there's a lot of ways to win this game, even though most of it is dice rolling. But it is really fun. And again, it's the tiniest little dice. So I really enjoy it. It's again like a very unique game that I really haven't played other games like it, but I could be completely wrong. There might be a whole genre of dice rolling, like specifically like these little ones. But
so
um,
we have Emily here with a comment saying it's fun, but for some reason everyone is quiet, just silently rolls and move. There we go. But they have an insert. It's clutch for the character power cards and dice holders. So I'm curious, how was your gaming experience with this? Did you notice something similar? Were there ever any of those big stand-up moments for you, Corinne?
I mean, it definitely wasn't quiet. I mean, we were definitely more outward about like if we
Mhm.
busted or um, trying to, because my husband and her husband are very similar in the
Mhm.
sense of they're very competitive. They're very good at board games. It's very frustrating sometimes. But we would get really upset with them because we would get to the point where everyone's taking the certain type of dice that are
Mhm.
like very helpful because there is no limit of how many dice that you can get of the same type. You just can't buy them in the same round.
Gotcha.
So we're just more vocal, rambunctious. I don't think there was ever a stand-up moment, but there were definitely maybe some shouty moments.
Gotcha. Now, does this give you more of a feeling of a game like Downforce where you're trying to just push a specific car to the end, or in this case, your racer, or something similar to Camel Up where you are gaining points throughout? Is that entire objective to just get to the end of the finish line?
It is to get to the end of the
Okay.
finish line.
Okay.
You are trying to collect money so that
Mhm.
you can buy higher and more
Gotcha.
expensive
Gotcha. Gotcha.
dice.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the main thing is to get your racer to the end. But we did the last one that we did, you actually, and it might have been the last race, but we did 2 laps. So that made it a little bit more competitive and not feel like, oh, the game, it's like ending so quickly, or like, oh, well, there's like no point for me to try because someone's like so ahead. And you do get advantages for being in last place, depending on how far back you are. It'll give you extra, basically, it'll give you little purple hands, which says you can put more dice into your hands to roll. So
Gotcha. Now, have you played Quacks of Cronenberg, Corinne?
I have not. I know that you really like that game, and you have
Yes.
like the expansions and everything. You're like, this is a great game.
It is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This one in particular, though, is often compared to that game because they follow a similar style where you have power cards that change what the different dice do. We saw that in Wonderland's War as well, where the different powers will change each time. And I was just curious to see if you had played it and if you had any comparisons. If you are in the comments here, please let us know if you have any comparisons between these games or similar games that have this sort of feature with this interchangeable abilities. But this is one that I have not played, and I'm very excited to try it eventually. So this is one that I'm constantly looking for to see if somebody has it before we pick it up for our library. Is this one that you would recommend?
I would definitely recommend it for trying it for sure to see if you like that type of gameplay. Now, I would want to check out the Quacks to see if it's superior than Cubitos. Like, I wonder if Cubitos is kind of like the baseline for this type of game, you know?
Gotcha. The biggest struggle that other games have when they're compared to Quacks is Quacks' strength, I think, is its simultaneous play. So in Quacks, you're all pulling at the same time. You're doing your effects. Are you doing the same thing in Cubitos?
Yes. So everyone has, it's like two sides, basically. You have your rolling turn, and then you have your buying. So once everyone has finished rolling and gotten their like stats and points together, then you flip over the little green bar at the bottom there. It says roll phase. Once you do that, you flip it over to the buying phase, or I can't think of the term, but that's the second phase. And so then everyone goes and buys the different types of dice that they want to move their character along the racetrack, all that. But so there's that simultaneous gameplay in the different phases.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for everyone to roll.
That's good. And that's one of the criticisms actually for the other game that we just talked about, Wonderland's War, is that the battle is not necessarily simultaneous because some people will be out of specific battles. But you'll be going from battle to battle, very similar to something like Rising Sun, where you have a set order of things that you will take in, and then if you're in that battle, you participate it and then pull your chips and do your thing. But I do think they help out with this, with that wager system, so you are invested and interested in what's going on, but you're still not necessarily playing, so that does add to the downtime of the game. So that is something to be aware of. So I like that this game tackles that and has you all doing it at the same time. What's your favorite part about this game?
Probably the different, just all of the different dice that you can collect. Almost feels like a collection without it being like, a full collection. But it's very satisfying to get the most expensive dice, or if you have, like for me, if I have like one of everything, I'm like,
you want the
more
whole
opportunity.
Gauntlet.
Yes. The 6, 7.
The Cubitos Gauntlet.
5. The 5 rings of power.
And then Emily here says that if you like this game, you'll like automobiles. So I don't know if you've played that one. I have not myself. So thank you for the recommendation, Emily.
Yep. Thank you.
Sweet. Anything else to mention for Cubitos before we move on?
Nope. Just a quirky, fun, cute game.
Awesome. Just makes me excited to try it even more.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that is Cubitos. We'll now move on to my last game for this video, and this is Who Did What. So this is actually a game that was donated to our library from Brenda Spear. She's a local Colorado game designer, and I was very excited to see them actually talk about this and be excited, give it to us to give us a try. And they said, hey, take it, play it, see if it's something that you like, and let us know what you think. And I sent her an email recently and said, hey, I think this game is pretty great. Now, this game is kind of impossible to find. It's really hard to search who did what online and actually find a game. So I'll put a link in the description after the video is over. But Who Did What is a party game that does this really cool thing at the very beginning. You're going to populate your deck of prompts by writing on these dry erase cards. And so when you actually have a prompt, you'll plug in the who's to whatever you're saying. For example, you may be sitting at the table with your friend Alex, and then you add that to the deck of cards. You'll shuffle them up, and then you'll pull your did card, and it'll say who has a sign in his or her front yard that reads trespassers will be blank. And so you write the answers to that. But that card for the who plugs in there, so it becomes Alex has a sign in front of their yard. And so you are essentially playing with prompts for all the people at the table. But I think that the writing is very strong in this game because it it steps away from, there's a lot of games that do this, like the voting game, that a lot of the prompts are pretty negative, or they can be taken pretty terribly out of context. But I think the writing is very strong here in directing it to a more playful manner and appropriate manner, but it's up to the players to create the responses and inject some creativity and cleverness into their answers. Now, that's my favorite part about the game for sure, is just the prompt building itself.
Yeah.
It creates a meta narrative, which the gold standard of party games for me is monikers. I think that is the best in the form of creating a meta narrative throughout the round to round structure. This game does that as well, where you'll be creating these inside jokes during the gameplay, and you'll see them as you continuously use them in the game. And then even after the game, it'll be something that you reference to. Hilarious. I love this concept. However, I do think that it does have a weak point in the fact that the system of scoring is a judge system. It's not my favorite way of playing games. You see this in Cards Against Humanity, games like that, where whoever's turn it is, they have to pick a winner. There's no real scoring criteria, though, for that picking a winner. You just kind of go with your gut, whatever makes you laugh, and it's up to the players. Maybe each player gets to assign their own criteria. So it's pretty loose when it comes to that, and I think that's my biggest ding for it, is I think that that scoring system is very much not the strongest. When it comes to games with this injected creativity, I think that Balderdash does it the best because it has a strict point scoring system. And I think that game's incredible. That's my second favorite party game. My favorite in this line of this creative injecting answers into responses. The deception in that is wonderful. So I do wish that there was a different way to adjust the winner, but I think for this situation and this setting, it's very casual. It's very fun. You can play it with anybody. There's no big cutthroatedness. You're trying to be clever. You're trying to be smart and funny. And I think it facilitates this style of game well. So this is a high recommendation from me. If I'm going to play a game that has a judge system, it's going to be this one. And I think that the fact that you can write the names on the cards, and you can even use people who are not necessarily at the table with you but are shared acquaintances as well. You can do that. And one thing that we did in our last play of this is we actually put my dog into the who. So Corn was one of the answers that you could put, and it was wonderful because some of the answers were great. Like I think one of the questions was like, during Mackenzie's funeral, Corn says this, or something along those lines. Amazing. I love stuff like that. These situations, these scenarios that play so well. So you have some cool stuff like this. What do you think of this? Are you interested in trying this? Is this a game you've heard of? I think maybe not, because this game is so under the radar.
No, well, this is awesome. Congrats to Brenda, was it, who created this game, and like having a getting to sell your own game. That's awesome. No, I love these types of games, especially when it is so not just creative, but why can't I think of words? You customizable. That's the word, to whatever friend group or family group that you have. I think that is always bound for laughs, bound for a good time. So I would absolutely be up for trying this. It's very much like Imagine If, or like you said, to Apples to Apples, Cards Against Humanity, that kind of judging things. But I love when you get to add your own personal inside jokes, or you create inside jokes basically. So no, these are really fun. I love games like these, so I would definitely be up for trying this.
I personally think this is a stronger version of the traditional version of this, which is called Say Anything. A very big hit by North Star Games, but I think this is the stronger version. I think injecting that personality through the different players at the table is so strong. I think it's a wonderful way to not only foster a relationship with the people at the table, but also get excited and create new memories that are going to go after your gaming experience. So there's some good stuff here. I really like this game.
I like it.
Awesome. And that's it. Any other games you wanted to talk about today, Corinn? Nothing in particular? All right. So before we finish, I talked to Corinn about this earlier. Normally at the end of the videos when I do them solo, I run through my entire list of games. So I'm going to go ahead and start off and just run through all of the games that I've been playing these last couple of weeks. If you have any questions about any of them, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm going to try to do this in one take. Let's go for it. Great Western Trail, Maracaibo, Super Fantasy Brawl, Kingdom Death Monster, Can't Stop, Caper Europe, Marvel Champions, No Thanks, Glass Road, Ubongo Duel, Terra Mystica, High Society, Alice is Missing, Chai Tea, the expansion, Who Did What, Rising Sun, Architects of the West Kingdom, the what's it called? Works of Wonder, Fantasy Realms, Lockup, It's a Wonderful World, Aeon's End Legacy, Wonderland's War, Furnace, Solomon Kane, Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, Part 1 and 2, Mind Management, Foundations of Rome, Jabba's Palace, Tokyo Game Show, Project L, Ink and Gold, Monster Expedition, Tokyo Coin Laundry, Tokyo Jutaku, Tokyo Jido Hanbaiki, Spring Meadow, Castles of Burgundy, and Flip City. Corinn, lay it on us.
You ready?
Yeah.
The Lost City of Arnak, Cascadia, Honeybuzz, Splendor, Cubitos, and my own game that I am developing.
Ooh. Any any deets on the game that you're working on? Or are you going to say that for a future time?
I will save that for a future time because honestly, we're still in the rough draft. I don't even have all of the rules kind of panned out. It's
Totally
fantasy. That's it. That's all I'm
And if
giving
you watched one of our previous streams, Corinn actually talked about an idea for this game. So if you go check out that, it's our IPs that we want to be board games. So go check out that video. It's on both of our channels, actually. So you can go take a look at it there.
Do you happen to have the total number of all of those games that you just listed?
I can figure that out really quick.
I should have been counting while you were listing.
40 games.
Nice.
There you go.
Solid.
So 40 games the last 2 weeks. And you have to keep in mind, most of the games I do play more than once. So I really enjoy playing games, and I try to play a game.
He's just
every
like,
day.
ugh.
It is a blast. I love playing board games. I cannot get enough of it. And I should have added Unmatched to that list. So that should actually be 41 games. My bad.
Should have left it at 40. Even.
Unmatched should have been on there.
Nice.
Yeah. But those are all of the games that we have been playing. And thank you so much for joining us in the chat. Emily says that they're playing Glow now. And thank you, Emily, for joining us on the stream. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. So thanks again, Emily. Thanks again, Barker, for your contributions here. Really appreciated the comments here. And I hope that you enjoy your game of Glow, Emily. And if you are watching this in the future, please let us know, what have you been playing? Have you played any of these games that we discussed here? Are you interested in any of these games? Do you have any comments, concerns? Do you agree with our opinions on them? We'd love to hear what you think. Corinn, anything else to add before we close up?
I need to play more games.
Well, I understand you are busy, and not everybody's lifestyle can manage ridiculous amounts of gameplay. And so,
but it's sad because we used to play so many others. I'm just in the middle of moving. It's fine, you guys.
Soon it will be done, and you'll have a great new space to play even more games. So life is good.
It is.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the stream, and thank you, Corinn, for joining us here. Please make sure that you check Corinn's channel over at SuperBlondeNerd on YouTube. Any shout-outs you want to give for your channel in particular? Anything you're working on?
We are just celebrating the month of May with anime. So if you are a fan of Japanese culture and shows and things like that, if you are ready to watch me and my sister be weebs, I'm about to release those this weekend. We're reacting to our favorite anime openings. We're literally, it's just a whole hour. I'm splitting them into 2 videos, but yeah, we're weebs. We're nerds freaking out. But yeah, Asian themed board games. That's already released. It's talking about different board games based on Japanese culture, Chinese culture, and it gives I give a little intro of just how much Asian culture in itself has been presented to me throughout my life and how much it means to me. So yeah.
I really enjoyed that video. As you can see, I've watched it. You can see my little playtime right there.
Oh my gosh,
but it's a good one. Go check it out. Corinn makes some great stuff here. I love her board game content. And she also dives into a lot of other content, lots of different fandoms. So if you're interested in anything nerdom-wise, go check out SuperBlondeNerd. But that is the stream. That is everything. Once again, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the fun stream, Barker. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy some games. SideGame Strong, y'all.